Since the reveal of WARDOGS a few days ago, the reaction online has been quite something to witness. In 3 days since it was revealed, WARDOGS has gained over 100,000 wishlists on Steam, so safe to say the team at Bulkhead caught some attention. The devs are pitching WARDOGS as a hardcore tactical FPS with one essential rule. It has to remember it's a game. It's got to be fun. The devs are aiming for an experience everyone can enjoy, built around the universally liked King of the Hill game mode, made popular by modders in Arma 3. Simple to understand, enjoyable to play. But since the reveal, Bulkhead has dropped even more gameplay details and information that I think you need to know before you decide if this is a game for you. We've got a decent amount to get through, so drop your thoughts in the comments as we go. Lots of information here. Drop a like on the video to support the channel. I really appreciate that. And subscribe if you're interested in WARDOGS. I'll be covering news, gameplay, and info moving forward as we get closer to early access later this year. Right, let's get into things. The core game mode for WARDOGS is King of the Hill, played on the enormous 256km² map called Culture. Matches pit 3 teams totaling 100 players against each other for control of a single zone. A point is scored every 30 seconds by the team with the highest player count inside that zone. The first team to reach 100 points wins, with match lengths currently estimated to range from 30 minutes up to around 2 hours, depending on how competitive the teams are. WARDOGS is set against a fictional Eurasian conflict over a vital resource called PV1. The massive map that you're playing on, Culture, is segmented into various points of interest and locations. Each match uses a random 2x2km section of this map, meaning players will likely experience a unique fighting environment every single time they load into a match. From my understanding, there are 32 different locations the matchmaker could choose from, and soon after launch, WARDOGS will be getting a second map as well. Not sure what the name of that map is, but Culture is 16x16, and that takes place on a wider 64x64km world. So Culture may be the name of the overall world we're playing in, and we'll get multiple maps on that larger world. Reflecting the conflict, players can choose to fight for one of 3 fictional paramilitary groups. We have Lone Star, the premier Western paramilitary force, Valkyra, a Soviet paramilitary group focused on restoring the People's Republic, and then we have Manticore, which is like this clandestine wing of the Kingdom of Persia. Now, of course, the use of fictional paramilitary groups rather than full nation states, I think that's probably the developer's approach to navigating certain political sensitivities. That's a pretty common practice in other modern games too. While the primary goal is capturing the control zone in WARDOGS, players can also fight over something else called the hot zone. This is a smaller shifting circle within the control zone. Being inside the hot zone doubles the player count for scoring purposes. That allows for potential match-swinging moments if a team ends up heavily populating it. You're likely going to encounter some more tense action within that hot zone though, based on its added importance, so this will probably be a location for the more dedicated players to fight it out. But I can also see the value of players staying outside of that hot zone. Maybe you're a sniper that's like sitting up on a hill or something, and you're sniping down into the hot zone, killing enemies. I think that's just as valuable as an SMG-wielding friendly who's doubling the player count inside that hot zone by being right in the action. Additionally, the hot zone rewards double cash for any action completed within it. And the importance of this cash, I will explain to you now. WARDOGS features a persistent in-game economy, and it's central to the experience. It's going to influence your options when you enter a match. In every life, you have the opportunity to build a custom loadout, choosing from a variety of different weapons, equipment, medical supplies, grenades, ordnance, and vehicles. During a match, you earn in-game cash for various team play actions. That includes killing enemy players, reviving your teammates, or even acting as like a wartime Uber driver and dropping off friendly forces inside the control zone from your helicopter. Any action that helps your team is going to yield a profit, which is then banked into your account for future matches. However, this is a real stakes economy, so by spending more than you earn, that's going to result in a loss, leaving you with a smaller account balance than when you started. A bad run in WARDOGS could force you to adjust your strategy, requiring you to purchase cheaper weapons in the next match to try and recover a profit again. I can already see scenarios where players choose to run a cheap primary with no attachments whatsoever, or even like only a secondary, like a pistol, enter the control zone and just pick off a couple of straggling enemies in order to increase their bank balance, reaching the later parts of a round with more cash, and then purchasing a more expensive loadout to help their team finish strong and hopefully win the game. The team are working on custom loadout presets that you can create and save, so if there are particular builds that you want to be able to quickly select from the in-match vendor, you will be able to do that in the future. The core of WARDOGS' economy is built around team play, directly rewarding players with that in-game cash for participating and getting involved. But the cash is also key to the game's cosmetic system. At the end of each season, any remaining cash in a player's bank account is automatically converted into gold bars. Gold bars are the exclusive currency for purchasing cosmetics in WARDOGS. These items cannot be bought with real-world money. Therefore, a player wearing a rare or cool skin has definitely earned it by accumulating enough in-game cash to make the conversion into gold bars. Players also have the option to exchange cash for gold bars mid-season, but this takes place on a live market where you've got exchange rate fluctuations. While this means the rate might not always be favorable to you, you also have to balance your desire for gold bars and cosmetics with the need to retain enough cash in your bank account to purchase weapons and equipment to use in a match. And crucially here, the developers have no plans to introduce real money options into WARDOGS. That reinforces that cosmetics are purely earned through gameplay. That's pretty cool. WARDOGS features a roles system, which is completely player-defined. You can purchase specialist items using cash to build a loadout that works for you and your playstyle, or one that fits the scenario that you're fighting in. You'll earn XP when you use these specialist items across 6 different progression paths and unlock access to additional items that you can then purchase each life from the in-game vendor. These different roles really create some interesting opportunities because they're not locked. You can choose whatever specialist items you want, really, and you can combine them together. So if you want to be a frontline medic, you could run an SMG, but you could take loads of bandages into battle with you, use prox chat to shout out to people if they need help, and then you could come to their aid as a healer. All the while, you'd be earning back cash for team play actions because you're healing people. That offsets the cost of those bandages that you just bought. Say you want to stick to being a medic, you could actually invest and buy a defib unit, carry that into battle, and revive teammates faster, getting people back on their feet quicker. And again, that additional cost of the defib unit gets worked back with every single revive that you complete, because it's a team play action and you get cash for that. You can repair vehicles in WARDOGS if you want to. There's another specialist item that you need to buy, and you get paid for the repairs that you complete. The role system, being open and undefined, allows players to choose whatever equipment they want. That's going to create some really cool archetype plays in WARDOGS. Now, as I've stated earlier, WARDOGS is a tactical hardcore shooter at heart, and whilst that can have certain connotations based on other games already operating in that space, I do think it would be helpful to set out what that precisely means for WARDOGS, because the game is also trying to make it accessible and more open. So here are several details that kind of help define the combat and the experience in this game. In terms of gunplay, you can expect something that sits in the middle between your more casual FPS game like Battlefield and something more hardcore like Arma. So if you go spraying your bullets with absolutely no attempt to control the recoil, you will simply miss your target. But with a bit of bursting, a little bit of tap fire, you will land most of your shots. Friendly fire is active in WARDOGS, so shooting your teammates isn't something I'd actively encourage you to do. I couldn't find any details on what punishments might be bestowed upon you if you do team kill, but perhaps a deduction of cash would be the most obvious option. And little side note here, friendly fire can be turned on or off by server admins because WARDOGS is going to enable third-party servers to run in this game, and it will have a server browser as well. In terms of movement, you've got crouch, prone, leanings in the game, it's manual leaning, walking and sprinting. There are different speeds for walking and sprinting, and you can sprint at a slower defined speed forever. There's no punishment for that. But if you do decide to use like the additional tactical sprint, that's got a stamina bar, and it's affected by the weight of your gear that you're carrying. So, for example, if you've got a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, a rocket launcher, and you've equipped armor, you're going to be a lot heavier, and that fastest sprint speed won't be active for very long. When it comes to health and HP, there is no bleeding in WARDOGS. I don't believe there's any broken bones in this game either. But when you take damage, you will drop in health, but unless you take further damage, your health just stays at that value until you heal yourself up with bandages. There's no auto health regen in this game. And the game does have varying strengths of bandages that will give you more or less XP depending where it is on the scale. Anyone can revive any friendly player in WARDOGS, but a standard revive takes around 20 seconds, pretty long time. That means you're going to need to clear the area before you attempt it. Either that, or you can grab the fallen player and you can drag them into safety. Very similar to Battlefield 6. But I think in that game, you sort of heal and drag at the same time. I think in WARDOGS, you have to drag the body into cover and then start the healing process once you're there. You can also buy defibs, as I mentioned earlier, and you can revive people much faster. WARDOGS has a bunch of different vehicles in the game. We've got tanks, choppers, like attack choppers, little birds, transport choppers, loads of transport vehicles like trucks and jeeps, stuff like that. With the helicopters specifically, they actually worked with an aerospace engineer to make them as realistic as possible, but then they added a layer on top to make them far more user-friendly. So again, they're going down that route of accessibility here. When it comes to the user interface, there's no 3D spotting in this game. There's no red marks appearing above enemy players' heads when you look at them. Instead, you'll need to work with your squad to manually ping locations of enemy players. Those pings are only visible to your squad, by the way. Friendly players will have markers on them when they're within your field of view, but when they move out of it, those markers will disappear. If you want to mark something for your wider team, you'll need to use the right specialist item like binoculars or goggles, and you have to buy those from the in-game match vendor. Those marked targets, when they're taken out, they will reward you with cash. If you mark them, you'll get that cash, and any marked targets will appear on the maps in the game if you're close to that player that's been marked. Every projectile in this game is simulated. I don't believe there's any use of hit scan here, so that means every bullet you fire, every RPG round that you smash into a wall, every tank shell that you fire, all of that is simulated. And this brings into play drop and drag mechanics on those projectiles. So the further a bullet flies in WARDOGS, the more bullet drop will occur over time, and the slower that projectile will move. This results in those bullets doing less damage on impact. Destruction is a big part of WARDOGS as well, and the team has worked to make destruction feel meaningful and within the player's arsenal of weaponry. They can use it for tactical reasons, open up new pathways, and deny enemies the cover that they need by just blowing stuff up. The developers have used a game as a guide on how destruction is going to work. That game is Battlefield 3. More thought going into which elements should be destructible and which parts should remain standing. They said in previous tests, where destruction was enabled across every element in the game, level design really suffered, with everything feeling way too flat and sightlines opening up massively. And with destruction comes building. WARDOGS supports building of different structures and elements that will allow you to repel enemy firepower and provide a launching point for your team. You can purchase a forward operating base from the vendor, and then you can place it down on the map anywhere you choose. This creates a buildable base where teammates can then continue to build fortifications around it. And these include defensive structures like HESCO walls and sandbags. And then you've got more specialized elements like sniper towers, bunkers, emplaced weapons like mortar stations, anti-air guns, and there's even a radio tower that can extend the range of your team's voice over IP and comms, which is pretty interesting. To build these items, you'll have to purchase building tools from the in-game vendor and then have them on your soldier. Now, extending beyond this, you have this fortified base to work from, so you could actually speak to your teammates and ask them to bring supplies up to that base. Maybe you want to fill a vehicle with loads of bandages and bring it forward so that people don't have to go back to main base to get everything they need all the time. That could be really, really cool. And there's one special thing that you can build. It's called the Hot Zone Magnet, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. When you build it, activate it, it pulls the hot zone towards your team's forward operating base for a limited period of time. And that means it's more likely that you'll take control of it and score additional points. So with all this stuff in terms of gameplay, WARDOGS is really trying to balance the tactical element of more hardcore shooters with general accessibility. You've got that physics-based projectile system, but you still just fire your gun. You've got limited focused UI that's going to help you in moments that you need it, but it's not going to overload you. Solid movement mechanics, including tactical sprint and leaning, and you've got a health system that's easy to understand, but can be taken deeper if you want to do that. It also promises more meaningful destruction based on the Battlefield 3 model, an extensive building system for fortifications and forward operating bases, and all of this feeds back into the underlying team play focus and cooperation with your squad mates. Now, I've got some additional info here as well. It sort of didn't fit into any of the other categories, so I'm just going to throw those at you right now. The anti-cheat system for the game is going to use the in-game cache economy to detect bad actors and people using cheats or exploits. The team will be able to use data for what an average player earns and then look at suspect accounts that are flagged or reported and then make further investigations into that player. The game is also going to employ a proper anti-cheat system on top of this, but having a further layer underneath is not going to hurt. Right now, there are no plans to release the game on console. The dev team is working hard to release WARDOGS on Steam on PC first. The game is scheduled to go into early access later this year in 2026, with the full launch penciled in for around 12 months after that date. You can sign up for playtests if you want to. I've put a link in the description for you. Now, the price of the game is currently set around $30 to $40, so in that new zone where a lot of games are choosing to go, think Arc Raiders as an example, games that offer a very clear experience but don't have that AAA back catalogue to fall back on, and that usually sends the price into the $70, $80 range. WARDOGS isn't doing that. Like I said, currently set around $30 to $40. The team are considering a price reduction for early access players as well, which would be a nice bonus for their support, I think. So that's kind of everything that I could glean from various sources across the internet about WARDOGS at the moment. The more I learn about it, the more intrigued I am to actually get a chance to play it, because it doesn't really feel like there's a game out there right now that's doing all of this, at least not in this way. The entire experience being built around a game mode that is really simple to understand is great, and then having these additional layers of teamwork, rewarding cash, XP, modifiers that pull double point zones around, smashing open buildings, creating new structures. It's got a lot of stuff going on. I don't think there's another game out there that's really doing that right now. The fact the game has that underlying cash economy, that's going to give me a reason to keep coming back, not needing some limited time game mode or event to get me to come back, because I've always got something to strive for each time I log in. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's no battle pass either. The team didn't want that in their game, so another big tick. I think probably my biggest concern, though, is whether they can get a handle on the bugs and issues that are likely to crop up. Obviously, any game that goes into early access is not going to be complete when it first goes in there, and I am expecting there to be some issues along the way. Stuff can go wrong, games are big beasts, and with all the different layers the team have happening here, I hope they're able to keep up with it all. But with early access, though, that will at least provide them the space to try things out, get them tested, see where that leads, and hopefully they can make the adjustments that they need to make. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Appreciate you staying till the end. Drop a like and a subscribe. I'll catch you soon.